consistent, right? It's not that we just finished a course and it's done. No, there is a lot more to learn, right? We just touched the surface. Now we have to dive deep, right? So thank you so much. I mean, in Kali Yuga, it's not very easy for us to actually continue in spiritual practice. There are so many things that come in our way that we divert our mind, right? So today we decide to chant the holy names of the Lord, chant Naam Jap Karna hai. Again, what happens is there are so many deviations, right, in our life, so many allurements in our life. And when that comes, our spiritual focus, it's very difficult to maintain that sincerity and determination, right? So सुबह उठ के काम जब करना है, that is all we know, that सुबह उठ के करना है नाम जप, right? Well, what happens Saturday, Sunday we reach, and then our mind tells us it's okay, one day we can leave it, take it. One day what क्या भगवान को तो पता है. And then what happens is slowly that becomes a habit. And in Kali Yuga, that's what the trick the mind plays. And it's very difficult to remain steady in your spiritual practice. So thank you so much for joining. And today's session, like always, we want to dedicate it to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And one of the reasons that we actually, whenever we do a presentation, we offer it to Srila Prabhupada, it's because of the gratitude and because of whom that we are all here present here and listening to Bhagavad Gita, the Song of Lord. Practically, we didn't have a clue as to what we need to be done when it comes to spirituality. And it's only because of Srila Prabhupada that he has created a global movement, that all over the world everyone is actually connected to Lord Krishna. And if you see ISKCON, now Srila Prabhupada is such a personality. When you talk about ISKCON, nobody talks about Srila Prabhupada. Have you noticed that? They will say Hare Krishna temple. Have you noticed that? So Srila Prabhupada wanted to ensure that his name doesn't come anywhere, right? He doesn't want his name to be primary. But we as devotees, we have a lot of gratitude towards our Guru. So once you enter ISKCON or Hare Krishna temple, that's when you understand who is Srila Prabhupada. Right? He didn't want to take credit for anything. Srila Prabhupada said, I'll take credit for only one thing, that is presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is, without any interpretation. And that is the only credit that he wants. Okay. So today's dedication, like always, I would like to dedicate it to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Today's session is Kala Chakra. So in Bhagavad Gita, there are 5 aspects that is being covered. Right? 5 main aspects that is covered. Okay. Do you all know what that is? 5 main aspects is covered in Bhagavad Gita. First one is Ishvara, Supreme Lord. Right? All these sessions we got a little glimpse as to who is Ishvara, some of his qualities. And every session that we do, we understand a little better about it. And then second one is Jiva. Jiva is us, spirit soul. And we understood various things about spiritual body and soul, concept, reincarnation concept. There's so many things that we understood. And then there is Prakriti, nature, material nature. We all understood, everyone attended the class, right? 3 modes of material nature. Yeah. So material nature. And then we have karma. Right? Karma, I think we had 2 sessions. One session was given by His Grace Al Saint Prabhuji. So karma also, we had some knowledge. Right? And there is last one, that is Kala. That is time. Right? And today's session we will talk a little about Kala, a little understanding about Kala. So general thoughts about time. We think we have a lot of time while snoozing the alarm. These are some of the things that happens to us. Right? Then sometimes I have very little time to finish the task. I wish I had more time. I don't have time. Maybe my time is not good right now. That's why things are not going my way. Everywhere time comes into picture. So even if you see, anything that you do, time comes into picture, right? And we have to ensure that our time is utilized in the very right way. Sometimes we feel that we don't have enough time, right? Some days we feel, why didn't Krishna, instead of 24 hours, why didn't you make it 25 hours? A little extra, I could have finished my work, right? Sometimes we feel an extra hour in a day, right? Extra day in a week. Huh? Then what? Extra week in a month. Extra month in a year. If Krishna had done this, I could have finished all my work. I wouldn't have anything pending. Right? So time comes into picture. So these are the things. And a lot of times we actually neglect time. Right? We don't give so much importance into time. They say, there's a famous quote, right? What is the quote? The pain of discipline is uncomfortable, but the pain of regret is unbearable. Yeah. So that's a very, very nice quote. And this is something that we all realize at the time of death. Thodi to bhakti karni hoti. Right? And this is a regret that we don't want to have. Right? And so many things, so many regrets we may have. Right? This is one of the regrets that we'll all have. And today's session will actually help us why time is so important for us. Perception of time. So today we look at two perspectives of time. One is eternal, that is absolute, and the other one is relative and temporary. So we'll actually go from start with the universal time, then we'll go to yugas, and then we'll go to our body. Okay, today's time we'll look at from macro level to micro level, right? We'll look at that. So you have seen, right? Even when we take off in an aeroplane, what happens? As soon as we take off from an aeroplane, we can see small buildings, right? You can see quite clearly things are there around us. So as we go up, what happens? The buildings become smaller, right? The cars, buses become smaller. We go a little more higher, what happens? Yeah, tiny. It's like a patch. There's a green patch, there's a white patch, there's a blue patch. So that's something that when it comes to time also, you need to see. That's why I said we look at time at the universal level, we'll look at time at the yuga level, and we'll look at the time in our level. Right? So today's, let's actually read this shloka. It's from Gita chapter 11. Verse number 32. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Kalosmi Lokachaya Kritam Pravartho Loka Samartam Pravartaha Rideti Pamna Bhavishyani Sarve Evastitaha Prati Anikesh Yodha. Can someone read the translation, please?
The Supreme Personality of Godhead says, Time, I am the great destroyer of the world, and I have come here to destroy all people, with the exception of me, the Pandavas, all the soldiers there on both sides will be slain.
Slain, yes. So this is where Krishna, if you look at 10th chapter, Arjuna asked Krishna to talk about his opulence. And 10th chapter, Krishna actually talks about his opulence, and then he says, this is just a fraction of my opulence. That 10th chapter itself looks so big, but he says it's just a fraction of my opulence. Then Arjuna asks Krishna to actually show his universal form. And that's when Krishna gives the divine eyes and divine vision, and then tells, I will show you the universal form, and Krishna expands. And when Arjuna sees Krishna's form, which is very ghastly, right? He's got millions of hands, millions of legs, millions of mouth. He doesn't know where to start, where to end. It's endless, right? And he sees the army, the Kaurava army actually one side, it's getting entire his mouth getting crushed between his teeth, right? It's a very ghastly scene. And Arjuna is actually very scared looking at that form of the Lord. And he says, no, no, come back to your original form. Right? And that time, Arjuna asks, who are you? That time Krishna says this, Kalosmi. I am time. And Lokakshaya. Right? I am the destroyer. So that's the meaning. Time I am the destroyer of the worlds. So this is what Krishna says. And does anyone know who else saw the universal form apart from Arjuna? Sanjay. In the Kurukshetra? Sanjay. Right? It's just a trivia. I just wanted to check. So action of eternal time. We have previously studied all this elements. Everyone knows, right? Material elements: earth, water, air, mind, intelligence. Now, how they interact, that is karma and different modes of material nature. Now, one thing that is important in this is time, is the factor that is moving things. The eternal time in this world does two wrong actions. No, there's some. Yeah. So one is the time is a controller. Time moves and controls everything, and time is destroyer. Time moves everything towards destruction. Now, anything you do, time is such an important factor. When you are actually cooking also, right? When you cut your vegetables, right? You put the vegetables into the pan, you put your masalas, and you keep it for some time, right? So time is so important. And time is such a subtle factor that is controlling everything and destroying everything. Right? That is what, yes. Yet we say bhakti karne ke liye bahut time hai, right?
Time is considered as a destroyer. It should be considered like a time with the books.
No, time is a destroyer. It's said because I'll give you an easy example, simple example for us to understand. You all celebrate birthdays? You all celebrate that I have turned 30, 40. But if you see, it's just 1 year closer to your death. So within time, everything gets destroyed. Your body gets destroyed. Your relationship gets destroyed. Your material things that you've earned, everything gets destroyed with time. There is only one thing that remains. What is that? It is soul. Everything material gets destroyed with time. That's why it says time is the destroyer. Right? Even when it comes to, that's what I'm talking. Even when it comes to, let's look at actually, we'll get a better understanding as we go through. Right? So this is very simple. This is not simple. This is tough. Some of you earlier would have actually gone through Brahma's day. Anyone knows Brahma's day? How Brahma's day looks like? Right, let's actually look at that. Very simple. Right? Brahma's day. How Brahma's day? We have 24 hours in a day. So Brahmaji also has 24 hours in a day. So actually what happens is when it comes to so when it comes to 14 planetary systems, we have a certain number of time, 24 hours in a day. So actually as we go up the planetary system, time actually dilates. Okay, time reduces. So what happens is probably 1 hour or 1 month in Brahmaloka, I'm not sure about the calculation, it's like 6 months in Earth years. Right? So let's look at this. Let's look at, so tell me how many years are there in Kali Yuga? 4,32,000 years? How many years we have passed the Kali Yuga? 5,000. So how many we have now? 4,27,000 years. Yes, yes. If you notice, few years back, I think a decade back, 2012, there was some prediction about Mayan calendar. Everyone remembers that? The big movie also came out. 2012. Yes. The Mayan calendar says that 2012 everything will end. Right? And a lot of people had this conversation in the office, in the college, 2012 सब खत्म होने वाला है, क्या करने वाले? but nothing really happened. And one of the reasons is because it's not mentioned in the, there is a lot of time still left, right? So once we actually look into our scriptures, the time is actually given, right? And so Kali Yuga it is 4,32,000 years. So now let's all start calculating. I know you calculator, it won't come into calculator. You can listen to me, okay? So 4,32,000 years in Kali Yuga. So let's take it as X. Okay, 4,32,000 is X. Now we go up. Dwapar Yuga. Dwapar Yuga is 2X.
Previous.
Yes, previous. So if it's 4,32 years into 2 is 2X. 8 lakh something is Dwapar Yuga. Okay. So let's look at X I'm keeping as value for Kali Yuga, which is 4,32 years. And you look at Dwapar Yuga, it is 2X. When you look at Treta Yuga, it is 3X. When you look at Satya Yuga, it is, when you add up all the X's, how much you get? 4X. X, X2, 4, 3. कितना आता है? 10X. 10X. Okay. And this one 10X is called one Divya Yuga. Okay. Just keep in mind. If you want, you can write it down somewhere. But this is going to go a little over your head. Because at times when we are also asked to calculate, it's a little difficult for us also. But over the period of time, it will be easy for you. Okay, so it is one Divya Yuga. Okay, and that adds up to 43 lakhs of years. Okay, if I give you the calculation, it adds up to roughly 43 lakhs years. Now there is another unit called Manvantara. Okay, and one Manvantara is 71 Divya Yuga. This is another unit. Manvantara is another unit that I am giving. One Manvantara is 71 Divya Yugas. And so 71 Divya Yugas, that is how many X's? 71 Divya Yugas into 10X. 710X. So in Brahma's day, I'm telling one day, there are 14 Manvantaras. One day, that is 12 hours. Okay? That is 12 hours. So you understand how many years, right? I'm just talking about the day, 12, right? Mother, you did that calculation, yes. 43 crores ऐसे कुछ आता है one day का. So 43 crores आता है day का. A similar thing at night also. That is another 43 crores. कितना आता है वो? 86.4 ऐसे कुछ crores आता है. That is one day. Now, how many days in a year? 360. Let's take 360 days. So 86.4 into 360 into 100 years. Brahma lives 100 years. कितना आता है? 86.4 into 360 into 100. 311 trillion 4 billion years. So this is the age Brahma lives. 311 trillion 40 billion 4 billion years. मैं कैलकुलेटर में नहीं आई हूँ अभी नहीं होगा वही. And today, as per Shastra, we are at the 7th Manvantara, right? 7th Manvantara, which is the 51st year of Dhamma, and 28th Yuga, Divya Yuga, right? This is just for your understanding. You can refer back. See, all these details are actually given in Bhagavatam. And it's very important. That's one of the reasons that we were always telling that if you don't have a Bhagavatam, please do buy it. Everything from creation, everything about Lord's incarnation, right? About Lord's Leelas, everything is mentioned in Bhagavatam. So it gives you a better understanding. And Bhagavatam is also called as the Granth Avatar of Lord Krishna. Sarva Vedanta Saram Iti Srimatam Bhagavatam Ishyate. The essence of the Vedas is actually there in Srimad Bhagavatam itself. Right? Because Bhagavatam is the last Purana that Srila Vyasadeva wrote. Right? He wrote all the Puranas and he was still unhappy. He was still not satisfied, and that's when his spiritual master, Sri Narad Muni, came and told that it's because you never wrote about the Supreme Lord. You never wrote any details about the Supreme Lord in detail. And that's when Srila Vyasadeva actually wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, which gave incomplete satisfaction. So that's why it says Sarva Vedant Saram Srimad Bhagavatam Ishate. So everything, the essence of Vedas is actually found in Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's why as Vaishnavas, it's very important to have Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. Not just important just to have it, but to read it as well, right? A lot of people, Bhagavad Gita as it is kept as it is at home. Right? That was not the reason why Srila Prabhupada kept the name as it is. Right? So we have to open it and read as well. Right? So we got a little understanding. So let's look at these are the planetary systems. Okay, you can see that, right? We are at Loka, the 14 planetary systems. Okay, so everyone knows about. So people ask about Pralaya, no? Right? When does Pralaya happen? And there is complete annihilation. So partial happens after 1 day of Brahma, where the entire lokas are actually filled with water except for the first 3. Okay? Till Janaloka, till Mahaloka, it's actually filled with water. And that is called partial annihilation. But let's talk about complete annihilation. Now I told you, Srimad Bhagavatam talks about, I told you about the creation, right? When Sri Krishna expands into Chaturvyas, 2 Chaturvyas, then Mahavishnu comes out. There is Karmadakshaya Vishnu, who is actually lying down, and from his pores, how many pores do we have? And then imagine Lord's such a gigantic body, and from his pores come, when he actually exhales, multiple universes come. Multiple universes come. Right? And so many, and when the universes come, Karmadakshaya Vishnu expands into Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and he enters each universe. And once he enters each universe, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu expands into Kshirodakshaya Vishnu and enters into each atom. So before coming to Bhagavad Gita class, how many of us actually knew there are 3 Mahavishnus, 3 Vishnus? Not many. Because you have read it, that's why. Right? So this is something that we didn't know. So when you read the scriptures, that's when you know. Right? And there are 3 Mahavishnus. And when you talk about complete annihilation, the Mahavishnu is actually exhaling and the universes are coming out of body. And the time takes for him to inhale. That is when the Mahapralaya, that is 100 years of Brahma. So imagine Mahavishnu's one inhalation. हमारा तो हो गया. भगवान का कैसा होता है? हाँ? His exhalation and inhalation is वो कितना हुआ? तो मैंने आपको कैलकुलेशन दिया ना? 311 trillion years. वो है भगवान. Right? And he is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu who has entered the universe. From there, Brahmaji comes out of Lord's navel. And when you look at Brahmaji also, there are multiple Brahmajis managing multiple universes. So Brahma is a position, right? So Brahma is a position that is hung for the secondary creation, right? And now you understood, right? Partial annihilation when it happens, that is 1 day of Brahma, and complete annihilation happens when it's 100 years. And it is said, when you actually look, the entire concept from the looking at the Supreme Lord's view, it is just inhalation and exhalation for him. So Brahma's life, which we felt is 311 trillion years, it's just a flash in eternal time. So many Brahmajis are actually just popping like a bubble in the ocean. So many universes. Right? Now, when you look at this, when you compare that, our existence, what do you think? हाँ, हम लोग कितने साल जीने वाले हैं? 100 बोलते हैं, 100 तक तो मुश्किल से पहुंचते हैं. 70, 80, lucky people who reach 70, 80 also, right? इतने साल में what all things we do, so many grudges we hold, so much negativity we hold, right? Without understanding how much time we have. And see, when we look at one of the reasons that I spoke about the universal time and gives you an understanding, because this gives us an understanding as to where we are, our position, right? Cheating is not meaning. Just like you're taking a book, right? And there's a hand that comes into this book. I just sweep the hand off the book. We are an ant in someone's book. That's all our time is, right? And when we understand this from the Shastras, we are supposed to, this is supposed to actually make us a lot humble. ये तो हम लोग अपने आप को बहुत बड़ा तोप समझते हैं ना. So when we come to an understanding that हमारे पास तो इतना ही time है, right? There was someone called as Lomasa Rishi in when you look at the scriptures. When you talk about Lomasa Rishi, he had a benediction. I'll tell you about he lived more than Brahmaji. You see, the Lomasa Rishi had a benediction that after every day of Brahma is completed, one hair from his body will fall off. Like that, when his entire hair falls off from his body, that's when he dies. After one day, it is 432 years. Lomasa Rishi. Yeah? So one hair falls off. Okay? So that's the benediction that he had. And as Lomasa Rishi was doing his bhajan in his, he was chanting and meditating on the Lord. So his disciples came, said, Guru Maharaj, we want to actually build a bhajan kutir for you, so that you can actually do your bhajan inside the kutir. Lomasa Rishi said, why are you wasting time doing all that? The Lomasa Rishi, who has time like this, he is saying, why are you wasting time? He got so agitated, why are you wasting so much time? Let's actually continue chanting and continue meditating on the Lord. So these things actually is for us to understand that we don't have much time, right? And we don't give that much importance, right? We still feel that when we actually go into book distribution also, when we actually try and give Bhagavad Gita to someone, there are so many people who shoo us away saying, no time, no time. Right? And we would have heard the saying also, no? Just killing time. You heard? All heard? But we are not killing time. Time is killing us. What is the most precious thing that a person can actually give to someone? Time. Chanakya Pandit says, when you talk about time, right? When you give time to someone, you can't even buy it with so much of gold that you give back. You can't get the time back. Time is the most precious thing that you can give it to anyone. Because once you give it, you never get it back. Right? So, the first step we have to, when we understand through the scriptures where we stand, it is actually supposed to make us more humble. So humility is one very important aspect, one very important quality that is required when it comes to being a spiritualist, right? It's a very important aspect. We have to come forward. There are a lot of times that people think that they know everything, right? What is the word that we use? A lot of pride, right? We say, no, he's full of it. He's full of it, bolte. When you're full of something, you won't have access or you won't have space to actually take something more, because you're full of it. Right? So humility is a very important aspect in spiritual, when you're actually taking the spiritual step, because a lot of things in our life we don't know. I mean, there is nothing wrong in telling that I don't know. Right? And that's the first step in spirituality. Right? So let's look at it. So Brahma's lifetime, we spoke about 311 trillion, 40 billion years. My lifespan, 100 years. ये खुश करने के लिए लिखा है 100 years अभी. Everything deteriorates with time. That is the law of entropy. Right? Time deteriorates everything. Now when you look at the degradation, we are talking about the yugas also, right? I spoke about the universal time, then we talk about the yugas. You see yugas also, right? There is Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga is actually 4,32,000 years times 4. As you go down, it is Treta Yuga, where 4,32,000 times 3. Then Dwapar Yuga is 4,32,000 times 2. And Kali Yuga it is 4,32,000 times 4,32,000 years, right? And it says that it is golden age, silver age, bronze age, and what is our Kali Yuga called as? Iron age. That's okay. Iron age. Yes, baby. Who fixed? I didn't fix, Prabhuji. It is as per Shastra. It's as per Shastra. So here we are talking about how as our time deteriorates in our body also. There are so many things that we do when we are young. Right? So everything is fixed by Supreme Lord, Krishna himself. Right? Everything. He is time, he says, no? Kalos me. I am time. Right? So it is, and when it comes to Sanatana Dharma, it's everything is cyclical. It doesn't end there. Satya Yuga will start. Satya Yuga will start. So that's why I talked about the partial annihilation, right? After Kali Yuga, there is partial annihilation. And then there is Satya Yuga, which restarts again. Right? So here also, we see the degradation. So Karthikeya Prabhuji used to tell about this particular joke, right? There is just talking about the degradation. So initially, when it comes to Satya Yuga, people used to give almost 70 to 80% of whatever they earn to the Lord, right? And as Treta Yuga came, so they said that ये तो कुछ ज़्यादा हो रहा है, right? तो एक लाइन बना दिया और ऐसे फेंके पैसा, जितना वो साइड निकला भगवान आपका, जितना ये साइड मेरा। तो द्वापर युग आ गया, तो तभी ये लोग ये भी ज्यादा हो रहा है, क्या करते हैं एक सर्कल बना दे, सर्कल बना दिया एंड देन दे थ्रू द मनी आउट, and whatever is there in the circle, that is Lord's, rest everything is mine. In Kali Yuga, they just throw it and tell Lord, whatever you can catch, you catch. Right? So that is the kind of charity that we do. Right? This is just for a joke, but actually in actuality also, we are quite similar also. Right? Anyone knows the 4 pillars of Dharma? Can someone tell me? 4 pillars of Dharma? Truthfulness, mercy, cleanliness, and austerity. These are the 4 pillars of Dharma, and Dharma is represented by a bull with 4 legs, and the 4 legs are considered to be the 4 pillars of Dharma. So when it looks at, when you're talking about Satya Yuga, all the 4 pillars were there. So when you come to Treta Yuga, austerity was lost. When you come down to Dwapar Yuga, austerity and cleanliness was lost. And when you come to Kali Yuga, austerity, cleanliness, and mercifulness lost. What is the only thing that is remaining, at least for some extent? Truthfulness. So that is the only thing that is remaining, at least for some extent. Right? And this is just to give an understanding as how our body deteriorates from our childhood to youth and to old age. Similarly, that is what is happening when the yugas also. In the previous yugas, people used to live for, when we talk about Satya Yuga, people used to live for lakhs of years. Came down to 10,000, came down to 1,000, and now we lived up to max, which is 100 years. Right? So even when it comes to the memory power also, it reduced. Right? Memory power reduced. The strength that we have, the bodily physical strength that has reduced. You talk about Dhruva Maharaj. He's such a small boy. You know, when he wanted to actually meditate on the Lord, you know how he stood? Stood on one leg, with his hands raised, right? And how many months did he stand? 6 months, a small boy stood. First month he had fruits. Second month he had leaves. Third month he had water. Fourth, he completely, yes, it's only air. Those are the kind of austerities people used to take. Can we stand 5 minutes? Yoga. Hey, yoga. People who are doing yoga, maybe they can, little bit at least. But 6 months, that's highly doubtful, right? So that's how degradation of yugas also happen. Degradation of physical power also, mental power also has been decreasing. So if you see by all this, there was a specific yuga dharma that was given by Lord. Satya Yuga, what was the yuga dharma that was given by the Lord? Meditation. Kritaya dhyayato Vishnu. Treta Yuga, what was it? Yajna. Treta Yuga, Yajna Vakya. Dwapara? Archa Vigraha Seva, right? Kali Yuga? Hari Kirtan, right? So when Lord also makes, he makes it very simple, right? He understands the capacity of his people, right? The people used to meditate for thousands of years, right? People used to yajna because yajna we don't have the right ingredients, the right people to actually do a proper yajna also. It's all impure right now. Dwapara Yuga, when people used to do a lot of service in the temple, majority of the time they used to be. We don't have that kind of time. So what is the best thing that Kali does? Hari Kirtan. Right? And he says the same kind of benefit that you enjoyed in the previous yugas, you will get the same realization, you'll be able to perfect your life in a similar way, doing Hari Kirtan. Right? And when such an easy process is given, still people like us, we actually go out of the way and try to find something which is very tough. इसमें ये कुछ तो problem है, इतना easy तो नहीं हो सकता, right? And we still try and find different ways to actually reach God. But He has actually given us an easy way, right? Hari Kirtana is more than enough to actually purify ourselves and go back to Lord. Now let's look at a day also. How the degradation happens in a day. Early morning is in the mode of goodness, conducive for sober and spiritual practices. As day progresses, passion sets in. As night progresses, activities of more of ignorance increases. Now, one of the reasons that we all say that we all need to do our spiritual activities in the morning, that's in Brahma Muhurta, that is 1.5 hours prior to the sunrise, because that is more conducive for you, because everything is silent, everything is clear. It's more easy for us to actually take in things easily, right? And there is not much of disturbance for grihasthas like all of us. It is easy for us. There is no disturbance from any of our family members or anything of that sort. And that mode is very conducive for our spiritual practice. That's why we say the early part of your day is actually you leave it for. If you actually see, when I came to spirituality, that's when I realized why parents used to nag that subah utke padho. They used to say, right? Why? Because mind is fresh, it's easy to grasp things, right? And that's the same thing when it comes to spirituality as well. It's very easy, it's very conducive at that point of time to actually grasp. It's very easy to focus on the names of Allah. That's why I say Brahma Muhurta, if you do chanting, it's the best. You've got the most benefit, right? And as the day progresses, passion sets in. The mode of passion, because most of us are working, some of our housewives also start working at home, so we are busy doing things. We are busy doing things for the family, busy doing things outside the house. The said mode of passion begins. And as the evening progresses or the night progresses, the mode of ignorance sets in. That's when you want to go out to some bhakti, bar khula rehta hai, right? So that's when actually the mode of ignorance actually sets in. So that's how the day also, if you actually see how it degrades, right? So now we understood the universal point of view, how the yoga point of view, and the bodily point and the day point of view as well, right? So this divine words from the founder Acharya of ISKCON. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformation. It takes its birth from the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. So these are the six kind of transformation every one of us actually takes, right? Birth from the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, that is byproducts. Gradually it dwindles and at last vanishes into oblivion. Right? So if you see, soul is permanent and body is temporary. We all learned that in our previous sessions, right? And scientifically also it's proven that every 5 to 7 years, the cells of the body actually changes, right? It's the new cells of the body that comes into picture. So actually, practically, if you see, every 7 years we have a new body, which is the shloka that talks about that. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yamunandara tata dehantra prapti tirastantranum hoyate. So as the soul passes through childhood, adulthood, and old age, there is one thing that is constant, that is wisdom, right? And that is the one that gives you the identity, right? So then, yes, that's what I'm going to talk. Then transformation, you can see this transformation in our body from childhood, what really happens, right? People, it is said that people at a later point of life, as the Kali Yuga progress, now you see, so many bad things are happening in Kali Yuga, right? It's just 5,500 years, whatever we have crossed. There are so many bad things that have happened, and we feel this now Lord should come and just destroy. Again, there is more Kali Yuga that is still we need to wait. In fact, it is said in Shastra that 10,000 years, the first 10,000 years is actually very good. That is when you will actually have some devotees to associate with. Post that you will not have anyone. It will be very difficult to actually do any kind of spiritual practice. So if I ask you, when should you all start devotional practice or bhakti, what should be your answer? Now. We looked at Kartikeya Prabhuji's presentation, right? Now or never, remember? It's so important, right? That we give importance when you're talking about time. We actually give importance to time, right? And that is very important. So when we actually, there are so many Prabhujis and Matajis who come. So we chant one round. There are people who actually progress to the next level. They take up 4 rounds chanting, 8 rounds chanting, 12 rounds chanting, 16 rounds chanting. So there are people who say, Prabhuji, kaise kare? Prabhuji, I don't have time. Right? And one thing we have to understand, when you actually take it as a priority, it is not you don't have time, you have to make time. Right? And it's very important as our desire deepens, right? Lord will provide our capacity also. Our capacity also increases. So if we have a desire to actually go to the next one, the Lord himself is Carlos me, he says, I am time. So it's very important that we also make use of our time and don't waste it. Even if you look at a materialist person, it's one who is successful would be a person who has actually used his time very nicely. Yeah, very effectively. So when it comes to material concept of life, it's the same thing. Same thing goes with spirituality. Right? So time, when we actually talk about you can't move into the next round, it's only because that's a mind block in your head. If there is a deep desire, yes, I want to chant the holy names of the Lord a little more. If that desire is deep, right, your capacity will also increase. Yeah, and that is, and it's not just a realization that I've heard from a lot of devotees. I myself have realized that. Right? Initially, when we started off, it was very difficult for me to move from 12 rounds to 16 rounds. I was thinking, कैसे होगा? 12 rounds से मुश्किल से कर पाता हूँ. But once we start, certainly, and when we start, we have a dedicated time for that particular sadhana. Then rest of the things, Lord will take care of it, and that happens. Right? So as your desire deepens, your capacity also increases. Yeah. Right. So you have seen the transformation of your body. I don't want to tell where I am at this stage. Probably the one with the glasses. Yes, second. So I heard from one senior Vaishnava, he says, I'm 43 by the way. He says 43 is the youth of the old age. is the youth of the old days, right? Time does everything or nothing, right? So this is such a nice sloka. And then Yamraj was it Yamraj or Yaksha who asked actually Yudhishthira, right? Yaksha was asking Yudhishthira, what is the most astonishing thing in this world? So he says, Ahani Hani Bhutani Kachanti Yamalayam Chesathavara Ichanti Kimasarya Adapara. Ahani Hani Bhutani, these so many people are actually dying. So many people are dying. But still people are not worried that they will also be at this stage at a later point of time. They are still thinking they are a lot of time. And this is the most astonishing thing for me. Right? So Yudhishthira Maharaj was very intelligent. Right? And that's one of the reasons that the Yakshas actually released his brothers. They were caught, right? And they are released. So this is such a nice shloka from Mahabharata Manaparva. Right? Is there anything that grows with time? Maturity? Right? So when you look at Prabhuji and us, the time destroys everything that we have. Our body gets destroyed, our relationship gets destroyed, our wealth gets destroyed, or whatever material things that we have, possessions that we have accumulated, everything gets destroyed with time. What is the one thing that remains? That is, please repeat after me. Neha Brikkamanashosti Pratyavayo na vidyate Swalpamapyasya dharmasya Trayate mahato maya. Can someone read please? Yes, thank you so much. So Lord Krishna says, when it comes to devotional practice, right, whatever you do doesn't go waste. Apart from things that you accumulate in this world, I'm not telling you don't accumulate because you have to look after your family, it's very important, right? But there's a certain level of balance that needs to be created, right? Otherwise, what happens? We are just living an animal life. I told about the 4 things that animals do, and that is the only thing that we do, right? We have been given this human form of life to actually contemplate why we are born here, right? Why do I have to face this misery? Who is God? What is my relationship with God, right? Atato Brahma Jigyasa, right? That's the first question in Vedanta Sutra. So it's very important. And Krishna says, though your material body will go, one thing that will remain is your spiritual punya. So whatever that you do, you're attending a discourse, listening to Bhagavad Gita, chanting your rounds, right? And doing any kind of devotional service, maybe going out and giving out books, distributing books of the Lord. These are all counted as devotional activities. These are all spiritual punyas that will come multifolds back to you. So even at this point of time, if I have not achieved the stage of perfection, right, and I have to leave this world, right, Krishna says that nothing will happen, nothing gets destroyed. I have done 25% of my bhakti this lifetime. Next lifetime, he'll ensure that you start from 26. Right? And that's why we see a lot of people actually, we speak to them about Bhagavad Gita, they are so interested. So that's why Lord actually sends his agents also, his representatives also at the right time. Right? And there are so many people when we actually go out to big distribution, they say, sir, we have, in fact, you will not believe, last week only I was thinking I need to get a Bhagavad Gita. Right? So many times. And that's when actually we just act like instruments in the hands of the God. And we go out when we go out and they are so happy to see us. And it has happened. So many of us are here because of some devotee actually spoke to you. Some of us are here because we came to Janmashtami and we registered. Right? Most of us were registered and very keen on understanding Bhagavad Gita. So why are we there? We registered around 400 people. Why do we still have only 80 people here? Spiritual punya. Sukriti that we talk about. So, it's not that you all have not listened to Bhagavad Gita in the past. You would have probably listened to Bhagavad Gita in the past, but you didn't complete or continue it. Right? And that's why we are all here. Right? So it is very important to keep this time factor is so important. Because the ultimate goal of life is actually to break the cycle of birth and death. Right? Yes, Chakra. Right? And that happens only when you actually dedicate your life. Because what happens at the end, when is your test that is going to happen? Death. Antakalecha mameva paramutta kalevara yat prayati madbhava yati nasti atra samshaya. Right? So, our life should be dedicated into devotional service so much, right? That at the time of death, what will come in our mind? What are the flashes that come into mind? What is the thing that you dedicated your time to? If I dedicated my time only into accumulating property and things like that, is the only thing that will come in my mind. Who will look after my property? What will happen? Who will look after my kids? But if you have a balance, you create a balance, and you give equal amount of opportunity for spiritual practice, right? And what will happen? At that time, we have more chances of actually Lord coming into remembrance of love. Right? So it's very important. There are a lot of people who say, "Ocha, this is the formula. At the end of death, I have to remember Krishna." वो तो कुछ कर लेंगे, कुछ कर लेंगे होगा नहीं ना. You're dealing with the greatest cheater in the universe. Right? We think we are smart. Right? You have to understand we are actually dealing with the greatest cheater in the world. ऐसा तो नहीं होगा. And naturally it's not possible. Whatever you have done your whole life, you will only remember that time because at that point of time you're actually going through so much of pain. Shastra says 40,000 or 60,000 scorpion bites when the soul is actually pulled out of the body. Right? Everyone says no, talks about peaceful death. There is nothing peaceful in death. Everyone goes through pain. It is very difficult for them to actually express it because that is the kind of pain. And at that point of time, to remember Krishna, when 40,000, 60,000 scorpions are biting you, is that easy if you have not done bhakti? Never. You will never be able to remember Krishna if you have not done bhakti. Right? So our ultimate goal at the time of death, that is our examination, is actually remembrance of the Lord. Antanarayana Smriti. Right? It is so important. And that's why we say that you will only do that when we are actually doing our devotional practice, which is chanting of holy names. We have to give it so much importance. So much importance. Right? Not just Sunday. Every day. Every day. Make time for this. It's very important. Because we are not sure. I spoke about 100 years of our life. We are not sure 100 years we'll live. Anything can happen any moment. Yes. So make the maximum use of this. And there is no loss. What are you losing? Right? Srila Prabhupada, someone asked him, Srila Prabhupada, you're doing so many, I think one of the reporters, I'm not sure. I think one of the atheists, he was an atheist and he asked, Prabhupada, you're doing so many devotional services, always spending so much time in taking care of the devotees and looking and serving the Lord. Ultimately, what will happen that at the time of death, and you die and you realize all this I did for nothing, there is no God. Right? And Srila Prabhupada said, that's fine. That's fine. He said, see, we are living very happily. We come, we do bhajan, kirtan, we are dancing, we are eating sumptuously. Right? We have such nice devotee friends. We enjoyed our life. That's fine. I will not have regret if that's the case, that if there is no law. Then he says, you have not done anything of this. At the time of death, what if you realize there is law? Right? So that's why Krishna says there is no loss in this path. There is no loss at all. So whatever you accumulate, whatever you do, say when it comes to charity also, right? In Shastra, uh, it is mentioned that whatever charity you do to a non-qualified person, even if you do to charity to a non-qualified person, you will get that back in your next life, right? If you do charity to a Brahminical person who is not reached that level, you still get the double of what you have done. And if you have done it to someone very exalted, to the Lord, to Brahmanas, they say that you get it in multifolds, multifold benefit, right? So anything that you do in devotional service is actually beneficial. There is no loss at all. There is no loss at all. First, should I invest my time? What will remain with me forever? Right? Now you all know where should I invest my time? What will remain with me forever? So these are the small things that we all need to take care of. When we understand at the time factor and how much time we have, nobody knows how much time we have, right? But when we see, they say there are three kinds of understanding, levels of understanding, right? And the first level is the first level is when we actually experience something very bad happening to our life, and then we regret I should have done, right? And even better than that is when we actually observe something is happening to someone, and then we try to amend our life. Which is the most intelligent, they say, as per Shastra? It is someone who mends his life just by hearing. So there are three levels: hearing, observing, and experiencing. Right? So we should ensure that we are not going to the level of experiencing. So that is very difficult. From there to come back and amend our life, it's very difficult. If you see in Vraj, how did Krishna call his calves? The cows that used to graze the cows, right? How did he call the calves? Don't know. Okay. First he used to call the names of the calves once they are all spread out, right? Calls the name of the calf. Even when if they are not coming when he call out the name, then he plays the flute, right? And listening to the flute, some come, some don't. And then what he does? He blows the buffalo horn, right? Then he blows the buffalo horn. Even then some calves don't come. What is the next thing that he does? Stick. So we have to understand, do we have to go to Krishna? Which way do you want to call? Listen to his flute when he calls our name, or when he actually comes after us with the stick? Right? So these are the three levels of understanding. Right? Yes. So that is very important. So you want to come when actually Krishna plays his flute, when he calls out our name, or actually when he takes out the stick. Right? So it's very important. So that's the understanding, three levels of understanding also I was talking about: experiencing, observing, and hearing. Right? You don't need to wait to experience. Right? When you hear, an intelligent person hears from the right source, that's enough for us to amend our ways. Right?
There's a well-known story about a university professor who wants to make a point about how to make the most of our time. The professor stood before his class with some items in front of him. When the class began, without speaking, he picked up a large empty jar and sealed it box about 2 inches in diameter. He then asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed that it was full. So the professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them into the jar. He shook the jar lightly and watched as the pebbles rolled into the open areas of the box. The professor then asked the students again if the jar was full. They chuckled and agreed that it was indeed full this time. The professor picked up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. The sand filled the remaining open area of the jar. Now, said the professor, I want you to recognize that this jar signifies your life. The rocks are the truly important things, such as family, health, and relationships. If all else was lost and only the rocks remain, your life will still be meaningful. Pebbles are the other things that matter in life, such as work or school. The sand signifies the remaining small stuff and material possession. If you were to put sand into the jar first, There's no room for the rocks or the pebbles. The same can apply to the lives. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you never have room for things that are truly important. Pay attention to the things in life that are critical to your happiness and well-being. Take time to look after your health, both with your children, go for a run, try to live with your grandmother. There will always be time to go to work, cook the house, or watch TV. Take care of the rocks first. The things that really matter, set your priorities. The rest is most the same.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So whatever is so important in our life, we actually invest a lot of time in that, right? So the rocks are actually the activities that is most important to you. So here I would like to add rock. When it comes to rock devotion activities, also a rock that we need to invest the time, right? So at times what happens is there are devotees who actually set a separate time for devotional activities, separate time for material activities, right? What they do, they compartmentalize. This time I will do material activity, and this time I'll do spiritual activity. The best way to actually do it is actually to integrate it, right? So what Krishna says is, Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Maam Anusmara Yudhyacha. Right? Saying every time you're supposed to think about me. When you're supposed to, you're doing a yuddha also, Anusmara. So even when you're doing our activities, don't compartmentalize it, right? You actually try integrating it with whatever activities that you're doing, devotional activities that you're doing. And that's the only way of actually being Krishna conscious. What does Krishna conscious mean? Being conscious about Krishna all the time, right? And that's very important. And just don't keep a time. Initially, as we start, it's a good practice to actually keep a separate time for your spiritual practice. But as time progresses, as your spiritual practice increases, as your sadhana increases, what happens is Krishna actually expands into your other activities as well, right? So that's when a lot of Matatis, when they cook also, they think about Krishna. They do so many things. When you're starting your work also, they think about Krishna, offering the fruits of the work to Krishna. So everything you're actually remembering Krishna, right? That's why Krishna is Anusmara. Yeah, when you're Arjuna also told you do Yuddha Anuspara, keep me in mind, right? Remember me. That's very important. How to effectively utilize our time? Yeah. So Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma Na Sochati Na Kamshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhakti Labate Para. Can someone read this, please? Yes. Yes. So that is Mad Bhakti Labate Para. Right? So what happens is we are constantly lamenting about the past, right? Lamenting our mind, actually constantly lamenting about the past or hankering about things that are going to happen in the future, right? So here, if we actually one is transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful, he never laments or desires to have anything, right? He's equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service, right? So these are some of the things. Make time for spiritual practice. If we make time for spiritual practice, all of the things will fall in place. Like I mentioned, right, a lot of devotees say that we don't have time, right? If it's a priority, you will make time. So that's very important. And as your desire deepens, your capacity will increase. And another thing that we want to tell is don't compartmentalize your material activities, try to integrate it with the devotional activities. These are some of the things that you can take forward from today's class. And time, people say time is money, right? Why do people say time is money? Why a lot of business people say time is money, right? Because it's that precious. It is that precious. So it's the same when it comes to devotional activities also. When we actually park it, or when we slack, right? This is what happens then. When we actually slack, there's a problem when we slack also. There is we are at the same stage, right? And when we want to relish the higher rasas, higher experiences, it will happen only when you are consistent in your sadhana. And that's very important. Otherwise, we are at a stage where we start off, right? And that's not a nice stage to be in. That is a stage where it is very, very comfortable, right? And being, I think most of us like to be comfortable. That's our nature, right? But when it comes to spirituality, we actually need to be a little, take little discomfort in taking activities further. Because Krishna says that anything done in the sattvic mode, right? How is it at first? It's like poison. Then it becomes nectar. Yes, nectar, right? So that is very important. So even what happens when you are actually trying to build a body, what happens? The lifting weights, so much of resilience, right? So much of resilience that we have. But ultimately, what happens? We have a nice body and yes, strong body. So initially, it will look like poison. That is the same thing. Getting up early in the morning, taking your mala out. It will be the most heaviest thing in the world that time, right? But as time progresses, if you are doing this on a regular basis, it becomes a habit. And then there is not much focus on getting up early in the morning because your timetable is set, right? If you do it for a week also, you'll find, I'm sure most of you would have experienced this. You do it for a week, then automatically without an alarm also, you will wake up. Yes, you will wake up at that particular point of time. And that is very important. Keep a specific time, keep a specific place for your sadhana. And yes, please continue with your sadhana. And it's very important when you talk about chanting, it's very important to give your, I say, no, what is the last thing that I said? Give your hand, give your, give your hand, give your head, and give your heart. Hand is when you actually view the activity of taking the japa and actually chanting, right? Mentally, then give your hand mentally into it, then give your heart to it, the Lord, right? These are the three things that is very important when we are actually doing a chanting or any kind of devotion, yes, devotion services, right? It's a quick advancement formula, A to F. You would have heard this a lot of times. A is association, B is books, C for chanting, D for discourses, E for engagement, F for food that we'll have in another half an hour. So, so thank you so much. So today we actually understood Brahma's day, right? Kala Chakra, how important time is for all of it. And from this session, let's all take our time in this world a little more seriously. Let's not take that we have a lot of time and we can park spiritual activities for a later time. No. There are a lot of people who actually regret that decision. And we certainly don't want to regret that decision when we are at our deathbed, right? So let's all take it very seriously. A certain kind of balance that we need to maintain is very important. And that will happen as you start, right? If you don't start, then we'll only talk about it. तो प्रभु जी कुछ भी बोल देते हैं उनको क्या पता मेरे लाइफ में क्या होगा. But the thing is what? Everyone's life, there are issues. Everyone has problems, right? What you see from outside, it's only जो दिखाते हैं ना Instagram में वही होता है, right? Inside, yes, it's very hollow, right? So please, whatever stage you are in, you're at the right stage, and so please do start your devotion. Yes, now or never. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I would like to take your. Thank you so much. Does anybody have questions? Yes, please. Prabhuji, you got mic.
Yeah. Sri Krishna Guruji.
Hare Krishna.
We always talking about chanting Bhagavad Gita or similar kind of scripts. What about the listening Bhagavad Gita?
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for asking. So when it comes to the Bhakti Marg, when you actually read, there is 9 kinds of devotional activities that you do. And Shravanam and Kirtanam is one important thing, right? Shravanam is actually hearing, Kirtanam is actually chanting. So like mentioned, both are important. So initially, like I said, it's very important. That's why we have the Bhagavad Gita app also right now, right? So if you don't have time, it's actually the best if you actually chant your rounds. Then you read 1 or 2 shlokas a day, and maybe listen to one shloka at least, right? So again, in this devotional activity, Shravanam and Kirtanam both are important. Yeah. Very good.
Prabhuji, as I was watching the video study, so I saw like we are in Sandhika. So what is exactly described or defined?
So Sandhi is actually a time that is given between yugas. There is a specific calculation for Sandhi. I don't know the right. Does anyone know Sandhi calculation? I saw the formula is somewhere around 4x, but I need to understand what that 4x is. So Sandhi is a transition period between the yugas. That is considered like.
But not we are in like Sandhika still as I know going normal.
Yes. I just made it a little bit simple because when there are a lot of units that come into picture, right? That's a little difficult when it comes to Manvantara, Divya Yoga and all. It's not very easy. This is itself is very complicated. So if I include Sandhi, Kalpa and all that, it'll become a little more complicated, right? Yes. So you can get more information from Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Or when we have a deeper class into this, we can cover that as well. Right?
In Bhagavatam, everything is God.
Bhagavatam, everything is covered. Creation, everything is covered.
You read
Yeah. That's why I said, Sarva Vedeshu Saram, Srimad Bhagavatam, Ishyate. I mentioned Bhagavatam. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. To this first flow, we mentioned like except Pandavas. So the Kauravas, Gandhis and all. So why did you mention except Pandavas?
See, if you see if you see the purport that is mentioned, there are two kinds of death that is mentioned metaphorically in the purports. So one, what is mentioned by acharyas is like the flies that are flying into the fire, and there is another death that is like the rivers going into the ocean, right? So there are two kinds of death that is mentioned metaphorically. So when it comes to the rivers flowing into the ocean, that is one kind of death. Here it signifies the death like that of Bhishma Devi. Right? And when the fireflies, you have seen fireflies, right? They come, when they see fire, they just dash into it and die. And that death is signification of people like Duryodhana. Right? So the two deaths are actually given in a separate way. So how you want to think? That's it. Any other question? Anyone else? Yes.
In the beginning, you said there are 5 aspects. Right? One is Ishvara, Karma, and 5 what are the
Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Karma and Kala. So anyways, what we'll do is we'll again sit in group discussion. So what I would like you all to discuss is, since we had a discussion on time, in your life, in your daily life, how much can you dedicate your time to devotional activities? Be very realistic, right? We are not here to impress anyone, because ultimately it is Lord who sees, right? So be very realistic, and also if you can make some amends in your life, which you can give some more time, because I am sure everyone has time. We just don't manage it well, right? Everyone has time. We just don't manage it well. So make groups. All the Bhakti Vichar leaders are here.
So, Hare Krishna, everyone. So, similar to last week, we will be sitting along with the BB groups. So, I hope everyone is aware of their respective BB leaders. Anyone is not available, can you please raise your hand? Sure. So delegate to someone. Yeah. So I think maybe leader is Abhijit Prabhu. Prabhu is here. So Prabhu's team can sit here. And myself, I think we'll be sitting here. Derek Prabhu, Prabhu is here. So Prabhu, you can sit on the right side. And Pavitra Prabhu
Pavitra Prabhu is here.
is not here.
Sadhu Prabhuji will take. Sadhu Prabhuji will
So
take.
Sadhu Sevan Prabhu. So
Whoever is
Prabhu
with Pavitra Prabhu can come with Sadhu Prabhuji.
Kunal Prabhu group also can.
Oh, Kunjisha Prabhu is not there. I'll take it.
So you can join with this solution. So whoever doesn't have the DB leaders, please do let us know. So that we'll assign some leaders.
Yeah. And one more important thing, Snehalata Mataji is here. Mataji's son is getting married on 26th, right? Okay, 18 January. So let's all pray one time for for Mataji's kid. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Yeah, so let's all sit in groups. I'll sit here, Prabhu. So who are under Kunjesha Prabhu, Kunal Prabhu, you can be with me.